from West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the following is provided by the West Virginia Department of Education and West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Hey everyone, it's Education Station, the show where we invite teachers from all across West Virginia to submit videos of themselves teaching their favorite lessons. In today's episode, we've got 3 exciting lessons about rhyming words, reading, and science. Well, hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Alex Milanese, and we're kicking off today's episode with a fun reading lesson. Miss Riffe is going to share a little bit about rhyming words. Let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Madison Riffe. I'm a senior at Princeton Senior High School and I attend Mercer County Tech Center. We're going to be discussing rhyming words by reading Peanut Butter, Apple Butter, Cinnamon Toast by Argentina Palacios, illustrated by Ben Mahan. Peanut butter, apple butter, cinnamon toast. What are the foods we like the most? Peanut butter, apple butter, gingerbread man. Guess our riddles if you can. Have some in a cone or cup. What flavor do you pick? It's cold, it's sweet, it's melting. Better eat it quick. What is it? If you said ice cream, you're correct. Red sauce on white noodles, great on lots of cheese. Don't you want that meatball? Pass it to me, please. What is it? Spaghetti. Give a red one to your teacher or bake some in a pie. This fruit can be delicious. There are many kinds to try. What is it? An apple. Without this food, no sandwich would ever be complete. Do you like rye? Do you like white? Or do you like whole wheat? What is it? Bread. Good job. This vegetable is orange and underground it grows. It's great for stews or salads or for a snowman's nose. What is it? A carrot. It's fluffy, white, and crunchy, a perfect movie treat. You pop it in a popper, then scoop some up to eat. What is it? Popcorn. This fruit is long and yellow, a monkey's favorite meal. You can eat one any time, but first take off the peel. What is it? A banana. It's boiled, fried, or scrambled, and used in baking too. But if you drop and break it, the yolk may be on you. What is it? An egg. Have it with some jelly or by itself on bread. Creamy, smooth, or chunky. Which kind should I spread? What is it? Peanut butter. Peanut butter, apple butter, cinnamon toast. What are the foods you like the most? All throughout the book, you guys were hearing rhyming words. To rhyme is when the end of a word sounds the same as another word. So let's look at our pictures. We have cookie dough, fry, macaroni, pepperoni, pie, and mango. I want you guys to tell me what rhymes with cookie dough. So what sounds the same as cookie dough? Cookie dough, pepperoni, cookie dough, pie, or cookie dough, mango? If you said mango, you are correct, because both of these make the O sound. Now let's look at fry. We have fry, pepperoni, fry, pie. What do you think rhymes with fry? If you said pie, you are correct, because they both end in the I sound. Last, we have macaroni. What rhymes with macaroni? Macaroni, pepperoni, macaroni, pie, macaroni, mango. If you said pepperoni, you are correct, because they both end with oni. Let's look at another example. Now we're going to read a story called The Frog and see what words rhyme. I saw a little frog. He was cuter than can be. He was sitting on a log, and I'm sure he croaked at me. So looking at the first line, do any words rhyme with frog? On line 3, we have the word log. Frog and log rhyme because they both end with og. Now let's look at the second line. Let's do he. Do any words rhyme with he in the story? I see 2 words. We have be and me because they both end in e. Here's a harder story. Let's see what words rhyme in this. Imagine a snail as big as a whale. Imagine a lark as big as a shark. Imagine a bee as big as a tree. Imagine a toad as long as a road. Imagine a hare as big as a chair. Imagine a goat as long as a boat, and a flea the size of me. Let's pick what pairs go together. In the first 2, imagine a snail as big as a whale. What do we think rhymes with snail? If you said whale, you are correct. Now these 2 lines, we have imagine a lark as big as a shark. What rhymes with lark? Shark, because they have the same ending sound. Now let's take another look. Imagine a bee as big as a tree. What about bee? Tree. Imagine a toad as long as a road. Toad and road, because they both end in ode. Imagine a hare as big as a chair. Hare rhymes with chair. Imagine a goat as long as a boat. What rhymes with goat and has the oat sound? Boat. And in the last line, we have flea and me, and they both end in E. All right, let's look at one more story. This one is called Ice Cream. Ice cream in a bowl, ice cream in a cone. Ice cream any way I want, as long as it's my own. Already I hear something that rhymes with cone. Own, because they both have the own sound. Now let's read the rest. Ice cream can be sticky, ice cream can be sweet. Ice cream is delicious, it's my very favorite treat. What about sweet? Is there anything that rhymes with sweet? Treat, because they both end in eat. Now that we've learned what rhyming words are, next time you read a story, pick out what words you think rhyme. And I'll see you later, alligator.
Thanks, Miss Riffe. Okay, next up, if you find yourself worrying a lot, well, you'll definitely relate to the character in our next story. Mr. Nichols is going to read a book called Wemberly Worried. Let's check it out.
Hello, kindergartners. Today we're going to read the story Wemberly Worried by Kevin Hankis. And this is a story about worrying about things that aren't always going to go right, or that you're always worried about something that's going to go wrong. And I'm wondering how your kindergarten year is going. And are you worrying every day? If you are, try and find someone to talk to about your worries and they'll help you along. But today we're going to read Wemberly Worried. Wemberly Worried by Kevin Hankis. Wemberly worried about everything. Big things. See, she's sneaking into her parents' bedroom and she wants to make sure that they're still here. She worried about little things and things in between. What if I shrink in the tub, she says. Wemberly worried in the morning, she worried at night, and she worried throughout the day. You worry too much, said her mother. When you worry, I worry, said her father. Worry, 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 said her grandmother. Too much worry. At home, Wimberly worried about the tree in the front yard. See, she's looking up and she says, what if it falls on our house? And she worried about the crack in the living room wall. What if it gets bigger and something comes out of it? And the noise the radiators make. What if there's a snake inside? At the playground, Wimberly worried about the chains on the swings, and the bolts on the slide, and the bars on the jungle gym. And always she worried about her doll, Petal. Shouldn't Petal have a car seat too? I found her, sweetie. Petal's lost forever. I'll wait for you, Petal. Don't worry, said her mother. Don't worry, said her father. But Wimberly worried, she worried and worried and worried. When Wimberly was especially worried, she rubbed Petal's ears. Wimberly worried that if she didn't stop worrying, Petal would have no ears left at all. On her birthday, Wimberly worried that no one would come to her party. See, said her mother, there was nothing to worry about. But then Wimberly worried that there wouldn't be enough cake. On Halloween, Wimberly worried that there would be too many butterflies in the neighborhood parade. See, said her father, there's nothing to worry about. But then Wimberly worried because she was the only one. You worry too much, said her mother. When you worry, I worry, said her father. Worry, 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 said her grandmother. Too much worry. Soon Wimberly had a new worry. School. Wimberly worried about the start of school more than anything she had ever worried about before. By the time the first day arrived, Wimberly had a long list of worries. What if no one else has spots? What if no one else wears stripes? What if no one else brings a doll? What if the teacher is mean? What if the room smells bad? What if they make fun of my name? What if I can't find the bathroom? What if I hate the snack? What if I have to cry? Don't worry, said her mother. Don't worry, said her father. But Wimberly worried. She worried and worried and worried. She worried all the way there. And there's our grandpa, it looks like, telling her to have fun. While Wimberly's parents talked to the teacher, Mrs. Peachum, Wimberly looked around the room. Then Mrs. Peachum said, Wimberly, there's someone I think you should meet. Her name was Jewel. She was standing by herself. She was wearing stripes, and she was also holding a doll. At first, Wimberly and Jewel just peeked at each other. This is Petal, said Wimberly. This is Niblet, said Jewel. Petal waved, and Niblet waved back. Hi, said Petal. Hi, said Niblet. I rub her ears, said Wimberly. I rub her nose, said Jewel. Throughout the morning, Wimberly and Jewel sat side by side and played together whenever they could. Petal and Niblet sat side by side too. Wimberly worried, but no more than usual, and sometimes even less. Before Wimberly knew it, it was time to go home. "Come back tomorrow," called Mrs. Peachum as the students walked out the door. Wimberly turned and smiled and waved. "I will," she said. "Don't you worry." The end.
Thanks, Mr. Nichols. Okay, for our final segment today, we'll be investigating a science topic. Miss Sinisi is going to help us understand the difference between nuts and seeds. Let's check it out.
Today we're going to look at the differences between nuts and seeds. So nuts, we'll look at those first. Scientifically, nuts are one-seeded or two-seeded dry fruits that are encased within a hard shell. The hard shell is called a pericarp. Usually in science where you see carp, then we're talking about a body, like the body of something, and then peri means around. So that's the shell that encases, the hard shell that encases those. They are what are called indehiscent. They do not crack open and release the seeds on their own upon reaching maturity. So they have to be cracked open. Most of them are edible. They're very high and good in rich fats that are good for you, not bad fats, like an avocado fat. Proteins, vitamins, and minerals. They have a high level of oil in them. And the oil we can use for energy or food that we consume. Here's some examples: acorns, hickories, chestnuts, hazelnuts. Those are all true nuts, meaning that they're enclosed in this pericarp. They're one-seeded or two-seeded fruits enclosed in a pericarp. That means that they are true nuts. So here's a little anatomy diagram, and we're going to look at a couple of real-life examples in a minute. But we have this anatomy of a nut. And so here, this is the outside of it, and here what it has been is been split open. And we have the pedicel. Anytime you see PED, that means foot in Latin. So that's the foot, or the stalk of the nut. Then there's the pericarp that I told you about, right? It's a dehiscent husk that surrounds that. And then inside we have the placental region where that seed was attached. A placenta, just like a baby, that you have inside of a placenta, just the same thing. It's been attached here. And then here they're showing us the hilum, and that's the scar by which it was attached inside of that pericarp. When we take it out, there's a little mark on it. And this is the actual seed. And then here I've given you an example of a coconut. Everybody kind of knows what a coconut is. The outside sometimes is a little bit furry. Looks like a bowling ball, right? So we have this plugged pores here in our coconut, and then a functional pore. And then we have what's called the endocarp, and that's the hard layer that contains the seed. So here we have a seed enclosed in a pericarp, enclosed in the endocarp. Here's a little shoot right here, and what we've done is cut our coconut, and we can see the root that came here that was growing down into the ground. And then you can see the exocarp, the outer layer, the meso, which means middle, that's the middle, that's the fibrous part, and then the endocarp, which actually surrounds this seed. The coconut has what's called an endosperm, right? Endo means inside. Sperm, we're talking about reproduction, but that's the meat of the coconut. That would be the part that you would eat if you were going to eat a coconut. And then they have this part that's called the apple, and that's just a sweet, spongy mass, also called a cotyledon, that dissolves and absorbs all of that endosperm. That's where all of the nutrients come from. So that when you eat coconut, it's very good for you. Coconut oil is good for you. Things that you could use for energy in your body, right? Seeds are small plants that contain stored food, and that's the important part. We need that stored food that provides nourishment to that mother plant. They have protective coats called husks or seed coats. They are produced by the plants as part of its reproductive process, and it's separate from the fruit on their own. So seeds and fruit are two different things. They come about differently. Some of seeds are edible, depending on what plant we're looking at, and they are also good sources of fiber, protein, fats, vitamins, and minerals. A few examples are like pumpkin seeds. You can get those at the store that are already dried out. They're called pepitas. Sometimes you'll see them, and you can eat pumpkin seeds. A lot of people eat sunflower seeds, poppy seeds, sometimes we put into foods, sesame seeds, sometimes you'll see those on the outside of a bun, a hamburger bun, or on bread. Those are important seeds that you eat to get those nutrients. When they're a mature fertilized ovule of a plant consisting of 3 parts, right? We're going to look at the 3 separate parts here of the ovule, meaning reproductive, right? We have the embryo, and the embryo is where the new plant forms, and it has to be subject to certain conditions. You have to have the right conditions to get that embryo to form. The endosperm is where the food is. That's the food store. And then the seed coat is that protective coat covering over top of the seed. Let's look, I did a little drawing here also of a seed. This is a typical what's called a dicotyledonous, 2 cotyledons, and this is a bean. We all know what beans are. So this is sort of like a kidney bean or a lima bean. You have the seed coat on the outside. You have this plumule here, which is what's going to sprout up as the plant. You have the hypocotyl, and that is just a little axis around the rest of it. It also has a hilum, remember where we take the seed out, we have that little scar. A micropyle, and this is the cotyledon where all of those nutrients are. Here's how our plant sprouts. There are the roots. It has one big primary root and all these little accessory roots. And it starts to sprout up and kind of curves around, and then the seed coat will start to form. After we get that, we're going to get some leaves, and that's what they're called, true leaves. Here's our cotyledon, and there's our seed coat. And then this is all going to encase our seed so that we can get a plant from our seed. The seed of a typical monocot, that was a dicot, 2 cotyledons. This just has one. The example I gave you is corn. The pericarp, that hard outer covering here, the endosperm by which it feeds, and then we can see our 1 cotyledon here, and our plumule or radicle, and all these other different ones. This, when you see rhiza like this in biology, it means root. So that's where our root is going to come from. So what exactly is a cotyledon? It's a seed leaf that's within the embryo. So we have the embryo, and we have our little seed inside of there, and it helps to supply the nutrition that that plant embryo needs to germinate. So germinate means it's going to become a plant, correct? So it's going to give all that nutrient to that and become established as a photosynthetic organism. We know we need green leaves to photosynthesize. We've talked about that before. So those are called seed leaves. So we get the photosynthesis, which gives the seed that fertilizer it sort of needs. An example are the first and second leaves that sprout from a sunflower. Or maybe when you were in grade school, or maybe when you're going to be in grade school, you take a little bean and you plant it, and you get to see those come up out of the ground. Let's look at monocots versus dicots. We know mono means 1 and di means 2. So in a monocot we have 1 seed leaf. In a dicot we have 2 seed leaves. And then monocots are narrow grass-like leaves. They look like little strips. They're very thin. Whereas dicots have veins and branches in them, and it's a bigger leaf. In a monocot, they have parallel leaf veins, and in a dicot, they're reticulated. Reticulate means move back and forth, right? Monocot, we have those fibrous roots, and in dicots, we have a main, what's called a tap root. And it has all these, here's our tap root, or our main root, or our primary root, and all of those little bunches of roots that spread out from it. Sometimes you'll see that. If you ever pulled a carrot out of the ground and you see those little tiny roots that come from it, the carrot's the main root, but the little branches come from it. Monocots, flower parts in multiples of 3. So here we have 1, 2, 3 flowers and 1, 2, 3 leaves. Flower petals. So they're around here, trillium has 3. Tri means 3. 3 little leaves like this, and 3 little petals, and that is a monocot plant. Whereas dicot flowers, we're going to have multiples of 4 or 5. So if you see a flower that has 5 petals or 4 petals, most likely it arose from a dicot plant. Monocots, their pollen has a single pore, just one little pollen granule, and in dicots they have 3 or 4 pores. So just some certain like anatomy of the different leaf types and how they would develop. Lastly, we're going to look at what is an achene. And I thought a lot of people have those, we used to call them helicopters when we were little, the 2 sides like this, and you throw them up and they spin down. That's not necessarily a seed or a root or a fruit. It's an achene. And it's kind of like one-seeded, but it lacks special seams that split and release the seed. So they don't have special things that break apart and just release the seeds. That's why they have those little things on them to help carry them. And the seed coat is attached to a thin, dry ovary wall by a little tiny short stalk. Then the seed is easily freed from the husk, as in buckwheat. So buckwheat is one example of that. Fruits are in the buttercup family and the rose family. They all have these achenes. So they're attached here, the little wings they call them. This is Acer. Acer around here are maple trees. You have Acer rubrum, red maple. You have, sugar maples, different types of maple trees. Here's our little tiny pericarps here, and those will break apart, and then we can have one side, and then this is Ailanthus, the tree of heaven. Ailanthus is also sunflowers. That's their genus name. I should have underlined these, I'm sorry. And then we have the pericarp. So what we want to do is we want to put our practical knowledge into to apply it, because what's the use of knowing something if you can't apply it? We are going to do a little experiment, and if you would like to try this at home, you can, or you can just come and try it with us. So if you come over here, we have some examples of some nuts that are encased. We can look at, go back and look at the pericarp here where the nut once was here. And then we can also look here at the pericarp that's dried. And if we crack this a little bit in here, we're going to put this right on the table. If you notice on the inside, there's the walnut. And a lot of you, that's good to eat. I love walnuts. And then we can look here, we have hickory nuts, and we have, these are called buckeyes. So our experiment, what we're going to do, and if you would like to do it at home, we're going to take some of this water, and we're going to wet a paper towel. And you can use any type of paper towel that you have at your house, but probably pretty absorbent so that it will keep that water in there for a long time. And you can get tap water. I'm going to use a little bit of bottled water, and we're going to wet this paper towel. Get it pretty wet. You want it to be pretty wet to last you for a while. And we can wet a few of them with that amount of water, can't we? And then we're going to get these wet. And we're going to place our nuts right inside of this wet paper towel. And this, they're going to stay hydrated within this little paper towel. So let's take and let's wrap up one of these buckeyes. You're going to wrap it snugly and securely within the paper towel, like this. Make sure that you have them wrapped up. Let's try a couple of these little hickory nuts. We're going to wrap these up. I'm going to try to get them very nice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place these in your refrigerator, not the freezer. We don't want to freeze them. We want to place them in our refrigerator until the middle of April. So we're not going to mess with them. We don't take them out and look at them. We keep them in there. And we are going to, as a group, you there that are watching and me, we're going to take these out of our refrigerator in April and see what happens to those. And then we're going to talk about the next process. So this video is sort of like two parts: the beginning introduction and then the actual application of the processes. So if you have any questions, we would love for you to put them below. And if you have any other ideas or what you think this is going to look like, you could put some ideas on there in the bottom whenever we look at this in April. And we would love to hear those. We would like to thank you very much for tuning into our videos.
Thanks, Miss Sinisi. All right, well, that wraps up everything for us here today on Education Station. We want to thank everyone who shared their awesome lessons. And we want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Education Station.